Evening, folks. Brian here. It's Friday, October 11, 2024. So in the last 24 hours, there's been 1,000 new people join my Facebook group here. You're about to see a different side of me. Let's get into this one. No one is responsible for doing the research for you. If you really want to know what's going on in the world, you're going to have to make some effort yourself to figure things out. Have an open mind. Critical thinking. Don't take for granted what all the wackos out there are saying. So Earth is undergoing its cyclical geomagnetic excursion, which results in the destabilizing and weakening of our protective magnetosphere. This, in turn, severely weakens our jet streams, which is responsible for bringing in our weather systems, weather patterns. It also allows increased cosmic radiation to come in, which, when interacting with our atmosphere, depletes our ozone layer, which in turn allows increased levels of ultraviolet, including sea level radiations. Increased cosmic radiation also charges the ionosphere. It charges up storms, energizes them. Now, there's clowns and fools out there with no critical thinking skills whatsoever. And a lot of people who are falling for the bullshit without doing simple research. They don't see the numerous vortices all over the planet, the snaking jet streams all over the place. But no, people are easily swayed into unfounded conspiracies. And if something happens out of the norm, it's automatically man-made in their feeble little minds. So I want you to understand a few things. During geomagnetic excursions, it's irrelevant whether or not it's going to be a complete pole flip. What's more detrimental is that it's an excursion and they left their polar regions. And they're heading towards each other. One moment, please. I've done this a few times. So our geomagnetic poles are heading towards each other. So the white pegs, pins, screws, nails are where the magnetic poles used to be, as in Nunavut, Canada, and the Antarctica. The red markers, as of 2019, is where they progressed to. It's already crossed over North Poles, heading into Siberia. Magnetic South was 2019 there. They've moved further since then. So they are drawing closer to each other, the two poles. They're drawing closer to each other. The further away from the magnet, the weaker the magnetic field lines, as in the opposite side. So right now, the convergence point is eventually, may not, is somewhere in the Bay of Bengal, Indian Ocean. It doesn't matter exactly where, off the coast of Sumatra, Indonesia, if they continue to draw closer to each other. which means on the opposite side, they are continuing to draw further apart. Therefore, the magnetic field is weaker on this side. What is on this side? The Americas. It's one thing to consider. The further away from the poles, the weaker the magnetic field lines. More cosmic radiation, more storms, etc. If you look at Earth's geological and climate history, now there is the idea, according to ancient Sumerian text tablets, our binary companion star and its companion of planets intersects our orbit every 3,600 years, or 3,657 years, during which time there are catastrophic events, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, abrupt climate changes. So out of curiosity, one night, I just went back every 3,600 years. I kept on going back and see what happened. Well, 3,600 years ago was by God's intervention, a great asteroid that struck the, Sodom? Gomorrah. Going back another 3,600 years, approximately. You can run it off at 3,600 and 500 years. There was an underwater volcano eruption off of southern Japan. Kikea Akahoya, the largest volcanic eruption ever recorded in history, larger than any of the others, mostly. $11,000 years ago, intense climate changes, which resulted in extinction of a lot of the animal species weighing anything over 100 pounds, dead, gone. 1,460 years ago, actually approximately 1,300 years to 1,400 years ago, something called the Meltwater Pause 1A, a rapid post-glacial sea level rise. Also called the catastrophic rise event in the Caribbean Sea. We weren't there back then. It wasn't man-made global warming. So there's geological wounds indicating dramatic, quick, catastrophic changes, like the Scablands event in the Pacific Northwest. Massive, sudden, rapid floods causing movement of large boulders and piling up of gravel 100 feet high and so on. So you can keep on adding 3,600 years and you can come across these catastrophic events. And soon a new chapter will be written on the next series of catastrophic events. And there are 4 warning signs we can watch out for and people to listen to. Take, for example, the American sleeping prophet Edgar Cayce. He describes 3 kinds of changes when it comes to the pole shift. It is the weather pattern changes globally, a rapid pole shift, and an increase in volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. One of his many predictions, when Etna and Pele on the island of Martinique erupt simultaneously, then 90 days afterwards, approximately, there will be catastrophic events, earthquakes in Southern California, including coastal inundations, Southern California, all the way up through the Salton Sea and Southern Nevada. What am I showing you? An alarming increase on the island of Martinique, almost daily now. An increase in building up heat and earthquakes on both sides of the island, including today a 4.1 on the east side of the island. Is it not chilling that what Edgar Cayce foretold of, the signs are now beginning to manifest? Before I delved deep into Mr. Cayce last April, I noted and reported on my YouTube channel the following anomalies: an increase in seismic events, New York area, Maine, coastal heat anomalies. Then off the coast of the Carolinas, heat anomalies in the waters, the marsh areas, and one video I produced of some sort of emission, smoke or steam coming out of the water. Moving on down, many a times, massive heat spreads in the Bahamas, including at least one video where I showed you a large column of steam coming out of the water in the exact location of satellite detected heat. Moving on to the other side, for a period of time I showed you heat detections in the waters off of where? Rancho Cabo Verde. It's where the neighborhoods are sinking and sliding away. Continuing up, I showed you lots of heat in the waters at the base of San Francisco. It was then I came across his information relating to catastrophic events to every single one of those locations I just pointed out. You also might want to consider Mike from Around the World counts all the time. Not everybody agrees with him. That's fine, you don't have to. Consider Joel, chapter 2, verse 28. And in the after I shall pour out my spirit upon all people. Your sons and daughters shall prophesy, your old men will dream dreams, and your young men will have visions. Sound familiar, Cayce? I listened to one of his podcasts, dated June 6, 2014. A vision or dream he had forewarning of catastrophic fires in Texas. And 2 to 3 weeks before the major fires last February in Texas, he said it again. Listen up. 1 and 2 days before I posted, I showed a large heat spread not far from the first major fire breakout. And in fact, there were 3 fire breakouts in Texas and the surrounding states, Nebraska, Colorado, and so forth. Large heat spreads on February 24th and 25th, before the first major fires on February 26th. I did some research of that area, and plainly I can see some evidence of old ancient lava scarring. Take that for what you will. So there are people, whether through prophetic visions and dreams, and others through their years of study and observations, who show you the signs. A lot of the time, these warnings do become reality, but few times not. As for me, I have said years ago, if we have a rising heat from the outer core through the mantle plumes, which are anchored to the outer core of our planet where our magnetic field is generated from the hotter magma coming up to the underside of the lithosphere in which the crust sits upon. Mantle plume heads can be thousands of kilometers in diameter. You can have branches, arms, nodes pushing up underneath the crust. I said that, if true, we're first going to see these signs where the crust is thinnest, the oceanic crusts, on average 6 to 7 kilometers thick. Then the continental shelves, then the coastlines, and finally inland. And over the recent years, a massive spread, a massive increase of heat coming up. And then we have the wacko conspiracy theorists, who the only thing that they can come up with to validate what they think is the truth, or they have a patent on it. It's very old, ancient news. It goes back to the Second World War. Absolutely no one has any proof it started or amplified or steered hurricanes. I'm going to take a step back. One of Edgar Cayce's 4 warnings was coastal inundation in the southern Carolinas. The last event was the northern Carolinas. Maybe there's something yet to come. Unfortunately, this is spreading throughout the internet. It's contaminating the minds of prominent YouTubers who are pushing this nonsense. It's quite surprising, actually. People like the economic ninja believe it was manipulated. I want to introduce you to Luke chapter 21, verse 25, one of my favorites. And there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity and anxiety, the seas and the waves roaring and tossing in the changing tides. Carries on to verse 26. People fainting with fear and with foreboding of what is coming on the world. For the powers of the heavens will be shaken. People will faint from terror, apprehensiveness of what is coming. The expectation of the things which are coming, which means we are going to know ahead of time what's going to be coming. Many people's hearts will fail them, literally. But all of these things must first come to pass to know that the end is not near. People are going to be, well, okay, Brian, how long do we have? Get yourself right spiritually, if you're not. But Jesus did not say, sit back and relax until I come back. He didn't say that. He told us what's going to happen before then and to prepare. So don't let worry conquer you, or the nut jobs and their conspiracy theories. Pay attention to Martinique, please. No one knows the timing on that one. I'm going to tell you something, though. When Honga Tonga Hape that large, huge submarine volcano that erupted in January 15th of whatever year, 2022. I was watching that for the previous 12 months, and I was documenting the heat buildup. But then La Palma, that exploded in September of whatever year the pandemic was, I was watching the heat build up on that for 12 months, 1 month, 30 days before that one popped off. Jesus told us that all of these things will happen in diverse places, for they are the beginnings of the sorrows and the birth pangs. Just like Edgar Cayce, Carlos Ferrata, John Moore, Mike from Around the World Council of Time, told us. And the earth-changing signs that I continue to show you on a daily basis all back up what these other people have said. It takes a lot of study, a lot of time, years and years, with a clear, focused mind, with some critical thinking, some maturity, some gray hair wisdom. It's our weakening protective magnetic field because of the ongoing pole shift. The poles always shift, but they've gone on the excursion. Magnetic north was last in a more or less stable position in Nunavut, Canada, until 1903. Then it started its beeline straight course away. It was actually meandering around northwest Canada until 1859. The Carrington event caused it to head into Nunavut. Then around 1903, away. Something no one else is mentioning. I would suggest that these powerful these magnetic storms, they don't have to be powerful, but because our field is already weakened, I'm wondering if that's given magnetic north a kick in the butt each time as it get going a little bit faster. Follow who you want to follow. I dedicate the rest of what little time I have after taking care of my daughter and growing my food and all that to bring you the signs and to show you the things that no one else is showing you, these wacko nut jobs. Part of last April that I showed you was the, as I just said, several heat detections off the coast of Rancho Cabo Verdes, along with the earthquake right there. Now you have big neighborhoods sliding away. During that report, just by chance, I showed you pictures of a circulating pattern of water right offshore, right in the bottom of where those houses and neighborhoods are sliding off, right offshore, as if it's magmatic bubble gases coming up or heat. Then what's reported in my local news a couple of weeks ago, Lake Okanagan, the exact same thing. Because I'm surrounded by volcanoes, and the bottom of Okanagan Lake is a fault zone. Precursors to what Edgar Cayce said. Everything's precursors. Etna has increased dramatically. Etna's always erupting, but a lot more so now. There's at least 4 or 5 magnitude 4+ earthquakes around Martinique, and increasing heat, as I'm showing you each morning now. Going back to the sudden climatic changes. If somebody tells you ahead of time what's going to happen in the Gulf of Mexico, and it happens, if somebody ahead of time tells you about water events going into Carolina, more than one person ahead of time, and if somebody tells you that in 5 locations in Northeast United States into Canada, there's going to be major winter hurricanes. If you imagine the amount of water is dumped down in Southeast United States, imagine that being snow. Would you take heed and notice and think about that and prepare for it? Or wait for the nut job conspiracy theorists to convince you otherwise?